Supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Dynamic Dog Owner. I hope you're all well and having a lovely week. So, as you will know if you are a regular listener, this is the podcast designed to support you, the dog owner, in your dog parenting journey. We don't focus too much on training and sharing training knowledge. There are so many resources out there and good dog trainers wherever you are located who can deliver classes one-to-one specifically for you and your dog. But we talk more about the concepts of training, the sort of human end of the lead, and sort of the general ideas behind training and some of the areas that people struggle with. We are launching this year a online dog training hub, so you can find training videos about general topics, and you can also work with us virtually via online coaching where we can support you and your dog individually. So that's kind of who we are and what we do in a nutshell. So today's topic is common areas I see people getting it wrong. And that sounds really negative, and I don't mean it to be, but basically 5 things that I think if people get the concept of, it revolutionises how you're working with your dog. So it's not necessarily mistakes you could be making. It's 5 areas I commonly see there is a misconception or the humans need to change their mindset slightly. So we're obviously going to be looking at making sure it is positive, because I don't like being very negative on the podcast. So first things first, number 1. So one of the common things I think people misunderstand or get wrong is focusing on obedience. And I can't personally stand the word obedience, rather than having some fun with your dog. And I know that sounds like, basically I'm just saying they should be free to do what the hell they like all the time. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying we focus heavily on my dog has to behave 110% all the time. And that is unfair, unachievable and unreasonable. We focus heavily on behaviour. They must behave, obedience. They must do as I ask them to do all the time without questioning it or without having their own thoughts and emotions. And I think it's really unfair. Yes, obviously there are some essential skills that we want to get right, but we cannot just expect them to be perfect all the time. And I think a lot of the time we actually need to forget the obedience and focus on more of the fun skills and the fun things. And the reason I say that is because obedience maybe you don't see obedience in the same way as I see obedience, but I see obedience as dogs walking to heel all the time. They're asked to sit, they stay sitting. Every element of their life is quite controlled. And that is quite common because we do want them to follow a set of rules and never step out of line. Now, what happens with this is, I think we set really unrealistic goals around obedience, and we expect young puppies, for example, to do everything perfectly, and they just can't. They're not at that stage of their development where they can. Whereas I think if we focus more on the fun, we actually take a lot of the pressure off. So we tend to think of fun things as being just that, fun. We all know from like a human education perspective that you learn through play. That if you're having a good time, you learn more. If you're playing with blocks, if you're doing PE, if you're doing crafts and art, you think it's just a fun topic. But actually, you're learning an awful lot from it that then transfers into other skills. So, for example, play, you learn how to think outside the box, how to change things, how to navigate paths, how to change obviously things that are happening. You learn how to explore and how to test things. In PE, you learn team building, you learn coordination, you learn games, rules, tactics. There's so many things that you learn that then actually apply to the more academic subjects. And this is kind of similar. Obedience and fun things are a bit like academia and more artsy topics. If we're focusing only on our dog behaving and doing exactly as they're told, what they're told, when they're told, how they're told, and doing it perfectly, yes, brilliant, we're teaching them some skill, but we're not teaching them skills through a fun way or a fun skill that they can actually improve their obedience. And I hate the word obedience. If you have any other words that can sum up what I mean by obedience, I'd love to, because I hate the term. But basically general training skills that make your dog a relatively nice dog to live with. That's more, I needed a better word than obedience. So rather than focusing on, those essentials, if we do have fun with our dog, so if we have fun off lead, if we play, if we chase them, if we teach them tricks, if we do fun sports, all of those things they don't have a purpose. Why realistic? I know we try and find a purpose, but realistically, why does your dog need to do a high five or a paw? What is the purpose of it? There isn't one. Realistically, we can try and scrape the barrel and find a purpose, but there isn't an actual daily purpose. It's not going to improve your life. Wow, look, my dog can do a high five. It means our walks are great. But it does mean that you and your dog have broken down small tasks. You've had fun together. You've had some relationship building. They've learned how to problem solve. You've got another tool in your toolbox. You've got another fun thing to do. Yes, it's not going to directly affect your lead work, but the connection and the relationship and the learning skills you have taught them through learning a trick in turn do transfer to lead work. So if there's one thing I would encourage people to do more, it's focus less on perfection, obedience, making dogs behave, and more on let's just have fun together. Obviously, we have to have a healthy balance, but the more fun we have, we can make lead work, we can make recall, we can make obedience fun. Generally, the more success you're going to have, and the easier your dog training journey is going to be. Number 2 is, again, a common mistake I come across, is people thinking that training is something that we do to our dog rather than something we do with our dog. So many people, how do I get my dog to behave? How do I get my dog to do this? How do I get them to do that? I need them to learn better, rather than us doing it together, or learning. Training is about connection, bond, relationship, and something we do together. It's not, you bring your dog to training, we teach your dog how to do something, you take it home again, job done. It's you and your dog working together to form a strong relationship, to improve your communication channels, for them to learn to understand you, and more importantly, for you to learn to understand them. We expect our dog to do a lot of the understanding, but actually, majority of people need to learn to understand their dog more and read what their dog's saying to them. So training should be something you do together. It's an activity that can actually become a hobby. Again, we tend to see it as a necessity. I have to get my dog trained because I need them to behave, rather than I need to spend time with my dog, enjoy my dog's company, and then learn together, and then enjoy the process of just being together. Dog training should be a fun activity, like a hobby, rather than I need my dog to do this better. Which kind of is similar to the next thing, but kind of different at the same time. Third thing, common mistake that people can make, is assuming that their dog has to make all the changes and their dog is the problem and their dog has to work hard, rather than them having to do it. It's a 50-50 split. You and your dog are a partnership. And we know with any healthy relationship, you can't expect one person to make all the changes. The other person has to make changes too. They have to change their mannerisms, change their responses, change how they do things, because then it affects the relationship. And that's the same with our dog. We cannot expect our dog to change and do everything and us actually not make much effort. That's not fair. So, for example, if you've got a reactive dog, I need my dog to not bark at other dogs. Cool. I need them to change. I need them to stop doing it. And I need, it to happen now. Okay, what are you going to do? Well, nothing. It's not me with the issue. Fair. But we have to learn to recognise it, learn to create situations where they can get it right. We have to learn how to manage situations. We have to learn to not take them to places where they're going to practice this behaviour. Not obviously all the time, but a majority of the time while we're learning. So we have to realise that we need to change too. Maybe we need to change, treats we're delivering, how we're rewarding them, the expectation that we have, big one, we often have really, really big expectations for what our dog's going to achieve. And then they're like, they're just rubbish because they never achieve them. Maybe we actually need to set less high goals for our dog, more achievable. So I'm actually happy for you to do this right now, knowing it will lead to the future. So classic, I was talking to someone today about recall, and they said to me, I don't think my dog's ever going to be off lead. Doesn't matter. You're working towards it. As a young dog. So for example, my dog, Fred, the youngest one, didn't go off lead in public until he was 18. I think he was 18 months, 2 years. Can't remember. He was about 2 when he went off lead for the first time. I didn't think that was going to be achievable. And when he was a young puppy, it wasn't achievable. But instead of focusing on that end goal and going, oh, well, my dog's got to work bloody hard to get to that, I actually set lower expectations. So I matched my dog and I put in a lot of hard work to get him there. So it's about working as a team rather than expecting your dog to do all the changing. Your dog can't do all the changes. It's not fair. You have to take responsibility for your half of the relationship. And I think in a modern world where generally what we want we get, you can order something on Amazon, it's there like the same day sometimes, which is incredible. If you want to go and buy something, you just go to the shop and buy it. We don't live in an age where we have to want for stuff. Think, I don't know, not even I'm trying to think of time, how long ago it was, but think of rationing, which was probably, I was going to say 50 years, but it was more than that. Longer, 60, 70 years ago when there was rationing. If you were felt really lucky if you got something that wasn't the norm. We don't have that nowadays. You can go to the shop and buy absolutely anything you want. We don't have to wait. We don't have to wait for films to be processed. When you go take your camera film to the olden days, for younger listeners, you had to take your camera film to the shop. They had to develop it and you had to wait a week for your photos to come back. A whole week. And then you couldn't wait to get home. You had to do it in the, for me, it was the stairwell of Boots, standing at the window, flicking through your holiday snaps. Now you take a picture, within a nanosecond, it's there staring back at you. We don't have to wait for anything. Films coming out on the telly. It used to be that you had to wait for it to come out on DVD, and then you'd have to wait for it to come out. And you wouldn't see it on the telly until it was like 6 months to a year after it come out in the cinema. Now you can buy it on Amazon Prime while it's still at the cinema. So we don't have to wait anymore. We want everything now. And I think we therefore then expect that in our dog training. We expect instant results. We expect to get what we want straight away, forgetting that actually we have to put in a lot of hard work, and therefore we have to set realistic expectations and break down tasks so that our dog isn't having all the responsibility put on them. The next thing, number 4, that I think a common mistake people make that affects their dog's success and therefore obviously your happiness with your dog is forgetting to channel your dog's natural abilities. We forget dogs are dogs. No matter how much you want to call them a fur baby, the term gets my goat, don't like it. No matter how much they're your baby, yes, I love my dogs, but I don't call them a fur baby. They are dogs. We have to recognise they are still dogs. We have put them into our human world. We can buy fancy outfits for them. We can dress them up. We can buy whatever. We can set them up an Instagram account, whatever else you do with them. None of it's wrong as long as your dog enjoys it. But we have to remember they are still a dog. Therefore, we have to give them outlet to be a dog. Because if a dog is never allowed to be a dog, then they basically don't get to fulfill what their bodies and their brains need, and therefore we have problems. So, often we look at behaviour issues and say, oh, my dog's doing this, they're really bad, they're a bad dog. Often they're not, they're never bad, they just happen to be struggling with something. But often it's down to the fact that they just don't have the natural opportunities to be a dog. So, sniffing to their heart's content, following tracks, chasing, running, catching stuff, doing dog stuff. We get a bit offensive if they sniff our crotch. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's how dogs communicate. So many people will say to me, oh, I'm very sorry, my dog's being rude. I'm like, let them crack on. They're finding out what they need to know about me. We see it as being very, very rude. To a dog, it's perfectly normal and natural. We put them on a lead, which I never know we have to do for a necessity. But how many people keep their dog on a lead all the time and never take them to a big space to just let them run? I'm actually the opposite. 2 of my 3 rarely go on a lead, and we do all of our walks in spaces where they can be off lead and safe. It's because I can, but they get to sniff, they get to wander at their own pace, they get to pick their pace, they get to choose their direction. Yes, there's a fence containing you, or there's an area where I'm going to get to and I'm going to call you back to me, but they get to be a dog. A lot of people get offended if, for example, a dog finds a dead furry animal and picks it up because, that makes them bloodthirsty. They're not, they're just doing what their body is telling them to. They're following DNA. They didn't murder it necessarily. They find it and pick it up. They carry your slipper. I mean, one of Dave has been carrying slippers around the house since the day he came home. Many people would tell him off. I'm like, it's a slipper. He's not going to do anything with it. He just carries it around because it's in his natural DNA as a Labrador to pick stuff up and carry it. So why would I get cross at him for doing it? I think it's partly the culture clash, which I've talked about so many times on the podcast, but forgetting to actually channel it. Often we see it as a problem, If your dog always wants to chase something, we stop them by putting them on lead. When do we give them the opportunity to chase stuff? And I don't mean like, let them chase a deer. I mean, let's simulate it. Let's get some toys. Let's channel that desire to do something. But you do it here with me under a controlled setting rather than free on your own. So we can harness and channel their natural abilities to make their life better. And often any of the things we're going to complain about with our dog actually no longer become an issue because we're channeling ability. So the more we give our dog opportunity to be a dog, and that doesn't have to be like, chasing stuff. It could just be you put them on a long line, take them to the woods and let them go where they want to go and you just trundle along behind. Best walk ever. Calming, relaxing. Your dog's happy as Larry. They're going to be so tired from it. But you're letting them just be a dog without always trying to rein it in and add an element of control. It's a big, big, big area that I think people overlook. Let them be a dog. Often it's not just with walks and stuff. It's like with chews. Oh no, I don't want my dog to chew anything. But they need to. They're a dog. We need to help them and give them these opportunities. The final one, the common way that I see people struggle or mistakes that they're making that do affect the bigger picture is setting your dog up to fail. Now, what I mean by this is often we don't do it intentionally, but if your dog struggles with something, why continue putting them in the situation so that they continue struggling with it and keep practicing the behaviour you don't want to see? It kind of links back in with the sort of third point of that sometimes we have to make changes. We can't expect our dog to do it all. Sometimes that change is actually changing lifestyle. So think about, for example, we always think of them because it's one we think of, but I'll mention a few different examples. Reactive dogs. My dog reacts every time they see a bike. Okay. So your dog barks and lunges every time they see a bike. Yeah. Where do you walk them? Down the cycle path. Okay. So should we not walk down the cycle path? Nah, it's easy. Don't have to get my shoes dirty. It's a nice straight path. It's lit. And it takes me from A to B and I need to get to the other end. Okay. But if, for example, your dog is lunging at every bike and 20 pass you on a walk, what are they learning? How are they going to achieve it successfully if you don't make some changes? You're putting them in a situation where they're going to get it wrong 20 times on a walk. When if you put your wellies on and walk a different route, you're not going to see any bikes. They have a perfect walk without any reactions. You have a better walk. They have a better walk. No cyclists get shocked and jump off their bike and fall over. Stress levels are low. No reactions. Yes, it's not going to fix the problem, and I'm not talking about fixing problems because obviously we have to have gentle exposure in the right way, but again at a distance so our dogs can get it right. Why would we keep putting them in that situation where they're going to keep getting it wrong, and then moan that they keep getting it wrong? It'd be like moaning that your child keeps setting your post on fire because you leave the matches and the post next to them. They're going to play around with it. They're going to try and see what happens. We can't complain Or a bit like, kids, like drawing on walls. It's a common thing, isn't it? Everyone moans about their kids drawing on walls. I don't think mine did do it, but in their room only when they were little. That's okay. They didn't do it in the living room, but they did do it above their headboards. Why leave the pens out? If you don't want them to do it, provide them with crayons that are washable, provide them with paper. This is where you colour, not there. Then you're giving them an outlet to do the behaviour, but just in a nice way. So you're setting up a situation where they succeed. They're doing what they want to do, just not in a way you don't want them to do it. Same as taking a dog for a walk who's reactive to bikes. We're not going to take you up and down the path so you react 20 times, but we can walk the other side of the fence or the bush or whatever, so we're 20 metres away and you can see the bikes and not react. If you've got a dog that is separation anxiety and they have a tendency to rip stuff up while you're out, I'm just going to keep leaving them and it'll get better one day. It's not. It's unlikely. We can't just continue putting them in the situations where they're going to keep getting it wrong. It's not fair. Often, again, there's so many situations that I see it. My dog ran out the front door. Okay, let's put a stair gate up. Oh, no, I don't want to put a stair gate up. Okay, so how are we going to stop them from running out the door? I'll just tell them to sit. Well, it didn't work the first time. So why is it going to work the second, third, fourth, fifth time? Let's put something in place to help them not practice the unwanted. And it seems to be, I see it quite to be honest, I'm lucky. A lot of my clients are bloody amazing. And I don't see these issues very often. But every now and again, we do get somebody who's like, nope, don't want to make any changes to anything I do. You can't then complain if your training doesn't work and if you don't see the results you want, because you have to help your dog learn. We learn from success. Everybody learns from building successes. If you do something once and you are rubbish at it and you get it wrong and it makes you feel bad, why are you going to want to do it again? You're simply not. If you do something once and it was a bit tricky, but you did it. A classic example, and Tash won't mind me mentioning this, our staff outing a few weeks ago was to pottery painting. It was the common thing that everyone voted for, that got the most votes, so that's what we did. Now, Tash is not a creative person at all. She does not like creativity. We went to an art party a few years ago for a staff outing and she did not enjoy it. So we went pottery painting and everyone was picking what they wanted to paint. Tash was very sensible, because she set herself up to succeed, not fail. Rather than picking a blank canvas of a plate and going, what should I draw on this? I'm not very good at drawing, and then not enjoying it. She picked something it was a burger. So look at our Instagram, because you'll see the before being fired, the during, and the after very soon, because we're going to pick them up soon. But she picked a burger that was basically, she said, paint by numbers. Each bit is already determined as to what colour it needs to be. Each bit's already highlighted. I just am painting it and colouring it in effectively. She was dreading going, but came out going, do you know, it was really enjoyable, because she set herself a project that was going to be within her capabilities and helped her enjoy the experience. So she set herself up to succeed. Why? If we can do it with ourselves, can't we do it with our dog? It's a big, big, big area that I think people need to focus on. So this isn't to moan at people. It's not my intention. So if you're sitting there thinking I'm telling you off, I apologise. I'm not. I'm just highlighting things where we can change things. So don't focus so much on obedience, training, skill. I mean, obviously do, because you need to, but put a lot of focus on your fun as well. I would say if you were splitting it, like number-wise, I would say 20% on obedience, for want of a better word, because I hate it, but, the training skill, and 80% of the time having fun and enjoying training, having fun together, building skills, and enjoying just spending time together, learning fun things. Remembering that training is something we do with our dog, because it's a 50-50 split and both parties have got to learn, rather than something we do to our dog. That's a biggie. And remembering that you have got to change and put in just as much hard work, if not more, than your dog does. It's not about them changing everything they do. It's about you as a team making changes to help each other. And remember, we're the ones that are in control a lot of the things our dogs do. So we need to make a lot of changes to our perception and the ways we are doing things, just as much as our dog needs to make changes. Remembering to give natural outlet for your dog to be a dog. So remember to do that. What would my dog like to do naturally? How can I help them, give them that opportunity to do it? And remembering to set your dog up to succeed. If they're failing in a situation and they keep getting something wrong, ask yourself, what can I do to change it so they don't keep getting it wrong and they start getting it right? And these 5 things, just thinking about, do you do them? Is there any way you can change anything you do? Focusing on how you can create those positive situations, and that will start helping your dog training progress. So hopefully that's been useful. If there is anything you'd like to talk about, as always, feel free to comment on social media, join our Facebook community group, give us your opinion. We love to hear it. And I will catch up with you all next week. Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.